Concern is increasing in Madison, but that positive test won't put a hold on the Badgers' season. I did the math here, and with Mertz's positive result divided by 146 players and staff, that's a 0.6% population positivity rate for the team. So what does that mean? Well, take a look here behind me. This breaks down the Big Ten protocol for COVID-19 outbreaks on a 7-day rolling average. Teams are in the green if their population positivity rate is between 0 and 3.5%. But if that rate is greater than 7.5%, Wisconsin is in the red, thus shut down for 7 days. For reference, if the Badgers reach a dozen cases out of their 146 players, coaches, and support staff, they'll be forced to shut down according to Big Ten protocol. I spoke with Dr. Jeff Pothoff this afternoon, and even with daily rapid testing, the Badgers are not yet in the clear to determine if they can play on Saturday.
They'll be able to pick up players who are positive, who may not yet be demonstrating symptoms.
Now, the Big Ten is the one that determines whether to cancel the game Saturday based on testing positivity rates. Any game that cannot be played would be deemed a no contest. The Big Ten went bold, trying to squeeze 8 games into 8 weeks, and this is the first test of making that a reality. In the studio, George Balekji, NBC 15 Sports.
George Balekji joins us now live from Camp Randall Stadium. And George, break down this time frame here. Many of us are wondering, how long will the Badgers need to be sidelined?
Well, Amy, first off, Paul Chryst told us that he, along with his 5 assistants that tested positive for COVID-19, all feel fine. Still, Camp Randall here behind me in the facilities will be empty for the next 7 days as the entire program is shut down. The entire team will quarantine. And even if they tested negative for COVID-19, still undergoing daily antigen testing as well. Now, the timetable for when they could return is as follows. The players that tested positive cannot return to game competition any sooner than 21 days from their positive diagnosis. Paul Chryst and his assistants, they have to quarantine for the next 10 days. And the entire program is shut down for the next 7. They will then reassess their metrics based off a positivity rate at the end of those 7 days. So Barry Alvarez and Paul Chryst, they were candid with the media when they spoke with us today that they are not sure when, in fact, Wisconsin football can return to practice.
We've got to make use of this pause, right?
Now, as far as the Badgers qualifying for the Big Ten championship game, the conference made a rule. You have to play a minimum of 6 conference games to play on championship Saturday. Now, that is unless the average of the entire conference falls below those 6 games. Then you have to play no fewer than 2 less of the average. So, for example, if everyone in the Big Ten plays 4 games in conference, the Badgers have to play a minimum of 2 games. But still, for now, Wisconsin and Nebraska this Saturday is deemed a no contest. Wisconsin against Purdue next week is in question, and the Badgers starting today enter a 7-day shutdown. Reporting live in front of Camp Randall Stadium, George Balekji, NBC 15 Sports.
NBC 15 Sports.
For a rivalry that came down to a 2-point conversion last season, Wisconsin and Iowa cannot be further apart this year. The Hawkeyes are riding 5 straight wins, while Wisconsin has lost 2 in a row in any semblance of an offense. Today's battle for the Heartland Trophy embodied both teams' finish to the season. Wisconsin without its top playmakers in Jalen Berger, Kendrick Pryor, and Danny Davis, so Garrett Groshek and Nakia Watson have to step up on the ground game. Badgers had 7 turnovers over their last 2 games. Opening drive results in number 8. Chimere Dike in motion runs into the handoff, would knock it loose. Iowa recovers and would kick a field goal for a 3-0 lead. Now, at one point, the teams combined for 12 straight punts. Badgers bucked that trend by going for it on 4th and 1, but Garrett Groshek and the Wildcat blown up by Jake Campbell. Turnover on downs led to another Hawkeyes field goal right before half. Then in the third, finally, a team finds the end zone, but it's Spencer Petras, 19 yards to Amir Smith-Marset. Hawkeyes go for 2 and get it for a 14-0 lead. But the Badgers get the first turnover of the day on a botched Iowa punt. First spark of offense. Graham Mertz to Jack Dunn on the Edgewood product down at the 1. Next play, Nakia Watson punches it in from a yard out. Back to a 1-score game. But for Iowa, it's Petras to Smith-Marset. Again, this one will be 53 yards for the score. Just torches a Badgers secondary. Iowa wins by a final of 28-7. Wisconsin's losing streak at 3 games, first time since 2014. We now go live into the post-game Zoom presser with head coach Paul Chryst.
Different game plan necessarily with or without Jalen, right? Well, I mean, obviously the plan was with him, but it wasn't like all of a sudden you had to scrap the plan because Jalen wasn't available, but obviously, he's a talented young back that I think was continuing to grow, and you would have liked to have had him.
Paul Chris talking about Jalen Berger there. He was a leading rusher over the last 3 games. Today, without the freshman out of New Jersey, Wisconsin just 56 total yards on the ground, averaging 1.7 yards a rush. And here are the Big Ten West standings at the conclusion of the regular season today. Northwestern locked in first last week, while Iowa rattles off 6 straight wins to finish second. Badgers are 4th now, 1 spot behind Minnesota at 3, who Barry Alvarez said they're hoping to play next week for championship weekend instead of a crossover game with the Big Ten East.
Team Sports.
Matt LaFleur is just beginning his 2nd year as head coach for the Green Bay Packers, but through 8 NFC North games, LaFleur is now 8-0. Now, the first 2 times the Green and Gold faced Detroit under LaFleur, both wins came down to a Mason Crosby field goal as time expired. In today's 42-21 victory, the Packers took the lead right before half and never let up. Now, how eerie does this look? Empty parking lot on Packers game day. Of course, Green Bay with no fans through the first 2 home games of this season. Even without fans in the stands, Lambeau Leap still happened. Packers trailing 14-3 when Aaron Rodgers finds Jones out of the backfield, untouched for the score. And that was just Aaron Jones getting started. We'll have more on him later. Packers still trailing 14-10 with the first half winding down when Rodgers finds Robert Tonyan. 11-yard touchdown gives Green Bay their first lead over Detroit since 2017. And it didn't stop there. First play of the second half, Aaron Jones up the middle. Aaron Jones with the Jets. 75 yards later, gone for the score. Longest play of Jones's career, receiving or rushing. Then the defense would get in on the scoring. Chandon Sullivan reads his Matt Stafford pass perfectly. Pick 6 made it 28 unanswered by Green Bay at this point, and they never let up, winning 42-21. Now, this was Aaron Jones after the game, rocking the same shades he puts on after every touchdown this season, saying they make him feel invisible. Well, Aaron, the whole league saw what you did today. 22 touches, 236 total yards, and 3 touchdowns, showing why he's one of the best playmakers in the league, while the Packers showcase what no defense wants to see: balance.
It's been a lot of fun. You come out and as an offense, that's what you want to do. You want to put points up. You want.
Now, we had sports tonight with sad news. Former Badgers running back James White did not play for the Patriots tonight against Seattle after learning that his father, Tyrone, passed away in a car crash today. His mother, Lisa, was also in the car and is reportedly in critical condition. Former Badgers teammate Russell Wilson had a message tonight for White after the game.
My heart's heavy, because one of my teammates, James White, from Wisconsin, one of the nicest guys, teammates, one of the hardest workers, one of the best people I know, had a tough one, losing his dad. I'm not sure what the situation with his mom yet, but my heart's been heavy all day thinking about him. And, obviously the game was the game. This year's been a tough year just as a whole, and a lot of people that we know and people just going through so much. But, James, I'm praying for you, man, if you can hear me.
Our hearts and love go out to James White and his family. That's it for sports. We'll be right back after this.
Sports.
We want change. We want justice.
For the 9th consecutive day, protests continued in Milwaukee, and today, the MVP of that city joined the March for Change. Giannis Antetokounmpo with his brothers Thanasis and Alex, along with Dante DiVincenzo, Brooke Lopez, Frank Mason, Sterling Brown, and Cam Reynolds, all joined local activist Frank Nitti during a protest on 27th Street earlier this evening. The entire group all wore shirts with "I Can't Breathe" written across their chests. One of the final words from George Floyd before he was murdered by a police officer on May 25th. Giannis said this wasn't organized by the Bucks, but instead this small crew made the choice to join the march themselves, and then shared one of his inspirations to make change happen.
I want my kid to grow up here in Milwaukee and not to be scared to walk in the street. Come on, I don't want my kid to have hate in his heart. Come on. So I was talking to my teammates, my brother yesterday, like, when my kids see this clip that what happened to these people that passed away or they got killed, how the hell I'm going to explain that to my kid? Come on, bro. It's gonna have hate in his heart. I don't want my kid to have hate towards white people, towards black. I want that. Man.
Nah, that's real.
We're all the same.
Exactly.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter the color. We're not black, white, yellow. It does not matter. We're all human beings.
Now, I know so many people will hear Giannis saying how he doesn't want his son to grow up in Milwaukee and live in fear of the police, and also think, man, Giannis wants to be a Buck forever. I get it. He's a once-in-a-generational talent and league MVP. But listen to it again and realize that once those jerseys come off, racism affects Giannis and his teammates as well. That's why they march. That's why they stand up and speak out. And that's why so many people around this country and the world protest, to bring an end to systemic racism, so their kids' world and the generations that follow will have a peaceful and better world to live in. That's more than an MVP. That's a leader. That's it for sports. We'll be right back after this. Thanks to On This Day moments on my phone, I was reminded where I was January 1st of 2020, the most beautiful scene in college sports, the Rose Bowl. And it's true what they say about the pageantry all week and the beauty of the valley below the San Gabriel Mountains on game day, especially when the sun sets. But what these photos and moments reminded me most of all was the lessons I learned through a beyond challenging and irreparable year. Always let those around you that you love know how much you appreciate them. Never take any of the moments, small or large, for granted, and always be there for your fellow human being, no matter their race or religion. Now, as the calendar flipped and a new year was rung in, that doesn't mean much has changed. We're still in a global pandemic, and we have to be mindful of every choice we make for our community. But what hit me is what Jonathan Taylor told his teammates in his last pregame speech as a Badger. Give it everything you got. Let's do that for 2021. Seize every opportunity that life presents. But as we look to move past a year we all want to erase from our memories, let's not forget the lessons we have learned. That's all for sports. We'll be right back after this.